Hello and welcome to Board Game Bonkers. And under the Meeple lights today, we've got the David Turczi. And I'll probably butcher that name like I have with many guests on the show. So, welcome, David.
Hello, it's good to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. And you've designed many games, including Anachrony, you've done Rush MD, and recently Voidfall as well.
Yeah, Tekken Utawan Pinsu, I tend to think of myself as mostly a Euro game designer, a heavy Euro designer, but I have dabbled here and there in quite a few genres.
Yeah, you certainly have got quite a lot of games out there, and we'll obviously put a link in the description down below so people can check you out and have a look at those games. So before we actually dive in and explain what this is about, have you got any projects that are coming up that you can share?
Well, first of all, Imperium Horizons, the sequel to Imperium Classics and Legends, will be coming out early next year from Osprey Games, and we're very excited because previously the Classics and Legends had 16 nations in them, and now the third one will have 14 in it by itself, so we're essentially doubling the size of the game. We worked for years on it, and then now it went off to the printers last week, so we're just like, fly, go. So now it's just waiting until the public can see it. Other than that, Voidfall is fulfilling to the backers in a month or two, so I didn't need to work on it for a while now, but now comes the we'll see how the audience likes it part. And other than that, I have one very exciting big Euro coming up at Essen, but I can't tell you more about that yet. It will be announced in a month or so, and it's a co-design with one very famous Italian designer. So it's gonna be fun.
Hopefully by the time this video comes out, so hopefully that'll be probably about the right time when the game gets announced. So we will see. And I see you're a Beatles fan. I can see unless that's someone else's, it just trashed it from the side.
Nah, when I moved into this room, I tried to hang all my music posters, and then they all kept falling down. It's like, all right, you can stay there. So I have a Pink Floyd poster in the other room because when I kept the row of painted naked ladies behind me, then not everybody realized that was a Pink Floyd album cover, and they asked, why do I have a row of naked ladies behind me?
So I'll just explain briefly what this is all about for those who are not familiar with the format. So we're in season 2, and what we're doing is presenting 10 questions to a guest, but we've drawn 9 out of this bowl here. Our guest has no idea what the questions are. And for our final 10 form, we'll actually be giving them a scenario and choosing one from this. Now, we did actually mess up the first couple of recordings for season 2. We're accidentally, with our first episode, we actually drawn out 10 questions. We got to actually present the scenario, but we did as an additional 11th question. And in our second episode with, I just forgot who it was. We did for a second episode, and it was Alex Radcliffe from Boardgame Co. We actually made a mistake by our 10th question, which was the scenario, was actually a question that got mixed up with the scenarios. So as I say, third time lucky. We hope we get this one correct and draw out just 9 questions from this bowl and draw the final one as a scenario. So we'll see how we go, David.
All right. I know nothing about the questions. Hope there'll be things I can answer.
We will soon see. So let's draw out question number 1. And number 1, we have, how far in advance could you predict your opponent's moves in a board game? So you can discuss about maybe your games or perhaps someone else's game where you're playing with opponents. Can you predict moves well in advance of what they're doing?
Obviously, it depends on how well I know the game. And I tend to play heavy Euros that are on the upper limit of how much my own brain can handle. So usually the games I play almost make me feel stupid. So because if it's easy, then what's the point? So if I can predict 1 or 2 turns ahead, I'm already feeling quite happy. But because it's my work, like 80% of all games I get to play are for work, either because it's a project I'm working on or I'm preparing to work with a new designer or a new publisher, so I play their games, so I know their styles, so I do my research. And the people I play with, my local game group or my partner Norley, most of them are better gamers than me. So I am very accustomed to losing, which means that if I can predict one or two moves ahead and feel like, haha, I outsmarted you, then that's a good day in my book already.
Well, yeah, everyone's a different gamer, aren't they? So, yeah, I certainly one who I can plan pretty well in advance, but it doesn't always work out either, and it depends on the opponent. You're absolutely right, and that can add a lot of competition. So, let's move on to question number two, David. Let's see what comes out the ball this time. So for our second question, do you think AI, so artificial intelligence, will play a big part in the board game industry?
Oh, I feel woefully qualified to answer that question with any sort of authority. What I can say is what I am or people around me are already using it for. Um, the most fun thing that I've used it a lot for is to generate prototype art with the image things, because so that when we have to test like how much part of a card will the art take and how much space we have for the icons, then you don't just want a ugly image there. It's more fun to play with thematic pictures, so then just type it into the AI and then run it. Obviously, the real published game will have real art because we pay our artists and use real people. But yeah, I have used AI art in my prototype, and that was always fun to come up with the prompts for them. I have heard some people semi-jokingly coming up with card titles or other naming things by talking to Chat GPT, but I have not done so. On the serious front, so not just on the fun front, not AI per se, but the digital uh, algorithmic testing we do a lot, especially for card games that are like lots of individual wheels to balance, so like Imperium and the Imperium line games. Today, setting up an AI to ask to play this deck and tell me which one is the strongest card is incredible effort. But 5 years ago, asking the AI to draw me a picture was an incredible effort. So who knows? Maybe 5 years from now, I can feed the deck statistics to the AI and ask them to tell me which are the three strongest cards of this deck, and then I can look at it that way. So I'm optimistic.
Yeah,
The question with the cool new technology is always how can it make what we're doing better, not replace it.
yeah, that's a very good point. It's how it can benefit us as either game designers or game players. And that's important, isn't it? Because you don't want it to replace things, but you want to complement what we've got out there. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's a very good point indeed. And I'm sure many people have an opinion on this, so we'd love to hear from you as well. So leave a comment down below and let us know your thoughts and what it is you think about AI perhaps playing a bigger part in the board game industry. So let's move on to question number three. That was a tough one, David. That was a thought-provoking question. No easy answer in that. Oh, there's a big one coming out. So for number three, if you were setting off to live on another planet and could only take one board game with you, what would it be?
Am I playing it alone, or do I have one other person with me?
You can have another person with you.
Yeah, because ironically, despite being one of the most prolific solo game designers, I don't actually play a lot of games solo. So the only game that has made me that I could play for fun solo over 20 times was Aeon's End. So if I have to entertain myself on another planet, then I'm probably taking Aeon's End, but like all 8 boxes, so to have a content for a few centuries. The If I have other people with me, then I'm just gonna cheat and say I'm gonna take Imperium and its brothers with me, because the whole game was designed around unlimited replayability, even before you take into account that I know how to design a new deck for it. So, so if we get bored, then I would just sit down and design another one. But yeah, because it's highly asymmetric game. It matters whom you play it against. It's best with 1 and 2 players. So if I have a victim there to play with me, then that's a game that was designed for unlimited plays. We have a couple of people on our discords who are now into the 400-500 plays, and I'm so envious of them because I played it less than 100 times in my life, that game, and it's like, I want to play it 500 more times. That would be so much fun. So yes, I would unhumbly take one of my own, one of the games that Nigel and I did together, because they are designed for this kind of entertain you for a century.
Well, wise choice indeed, David. And yeah, I'm sure not many people argue with taking one of your own games, certainly. So let's move on to our next question. We're on to number 4. I'm not sure what game I would take on a planet. I think happy with any game, to be honest, as long as I've got a board game to play. So, number 4. If you had to represent your country in a global board game competition, what would it be? So what board game would you choose to play in a global competition?
Oh, as I said, once upon a time, I thought I was good at board games, and then I got myself better testers, and now I lose all my games. So I am no longer that confident in my skills to win against competitive players. So I'm trying to think which game is it that I think Brass is the game where I still feel that I can, if not beat, but at least keep up with the really good players. But again, I haven't had a chance to play it in over a year, so probably I'm rusty by now, but I would try Brass. There are a lot of games I love playing, trying hard to win. Underwater Cities, Dune Imperium. So these are like the lighter end of the heavy Euros, the ones that I can play and not feel like my brain is on fire. Like probably Camben is the heaviest that I can play trying to win and not just trying to play. Anything heavier than Camben is like, if you can play through with your brain intact, then that's already a good job. And but with Brass, plus, as I said, I play with people whom I can teach a new Euro and they beat the crap out of me in it. But Brass, I think I can hold my own. So I'd pick Brass.
Yeah, and it's not an easy game to play either. It does take quite a bit to get your head around and certainly work out.
No, but it's not perfectly calculatable. Most of the people that can beat me in the heavy Euros can beat me because they can calculate deeper. They can see that even though between option A and option B, option A is tactically better, but option B puts you on a trajectory that will pay off in the long run. And 3 rounds from now, I'll be looking at them being jealous. But Brass is a much more tactical game. And because of that, my micro optimizations pay off a lot sooner than like people who do macro optimization a lot better than me can beat me in traditional engine building games. But Brass is not an engine building game. Brass is a knife fight in a phone booth. It's over before it starts. So that's why I feel like I can play well with it, because all I have to do is micro optimize, and then the game's over. So yeah, that's why I pick Brass.
Fantastic.
Plus, it's one of the greatest games ever made. So at least I'll have fun.
Yeah, it's one of the games I would say it's probably the best designed game I've ever come across. Now, I'm going to say it as a caveat because I don't actually like the game that much, but it's a brilliantly designed game. It's so smooth, it's elegantly put together. It's just a wonderful design and how well it's balanced as well. And yeah, of course, some little elements you could argue aren't so much balanced, but overall, it's a brilliantly put together game. It's quite a dark theme to it. And it certainly works and plays well with various player counts. So it's brilliantly put together, and I can see why people love it so much.
With 2, it has issues, but with 3 and 4, it's really good. Yes.
So yeah, it's certainly a great choice. I don't think anyone will argue with that game. So let's move on to number 5. I'm sure I'll get a lot of keyboard warriors claiming that I'm wrong about Brass and how amazing it is, and I should love it more.
I mean, it
But
is amazing. I'll tell you, but I understand how can people not like it. Like it also depends what other things you like, because what do you approach it from?
yeah.
Okay, check out that game that I can't tell you about. That's coming this October, because Brass was one of the major inspirations on how can we do this idea in a completely different way. So my take on Brass. So
Fantastic. So, on to number 5. Is there one mechanism in a game design that is currently being underused?
I'm sure there are many. I can tell you which ones interest me. I've been dying to find a reason to design a cooperative worker placement game, mostly because worker placement at its core is a action drafting mechanism, and cooperative drafting has barely been done. And when it was done, it was always done with a communication element. It was never done on a strategic level. Co-ops, they're essentially on a very high level. There are 3 kind of co-ops. There are the ones with the communication hurdle, the real-time game, the can't talk games, the blah blah blah. Then there are the multiplayer push your luck, solve a puzzle, survive this kind of game, the pandemics, the Robinson Crusoes, the things where you do something, you make some choices, and then you either die or you don't. And there's the third kind, the strategy game, where you happen to play against the game. And up until a few years ago, I could have not named any game other than Spirit Island and Mage Knight of this genre. And because of that, I always said I don't like co-op games. Where what I meant was I don't like the second kind of co-op games. I don't like the survival co-op games. I really like the third kind. I really like the strategic co-op. And it now starting to build. I've only played Frostpunk once, but that looks like it's heading into that direction with a lot of theme. Aeons, and as it's getting heavier and heavier, it's getting into my area of strategy where I like it. And because of that, I started as a designer exploring co-op. It's like, okay, I always ignored co-op as a designer because I didn't like it. So now that I understand what I need to like about it, what can I do with it? And with Voidfall, the game comes with a complete competitive game and a complete cooperative game in it. And it's not like one is a variant to another. We made sure that it's equal. So, and I enjoyed this. And that was I thought for years that I loved the Voidfall competitive game. And then in the end, I actually liked the cooperative even more. So here I am now. It's like, if I can enjoy a cooperative game design this much, what more could I do? So cooperative and worker placement is something that never be like heavy Euro worker placement. So not just I take this resource, you take that resource, but like the things that are anachrony and heavier have not been put into cooperative games at all. Other than that, my second guess would have been how to put it, communal deck building or pool building in a way where it's not that I build the deck, but the pool of things available to all of us dynamically changes. The only game that did it in a way that I wanted somebody to finally do it was Edge of Darkness, where you buy cards, you mark the cards as yours, and then you put them into the main deck, and then everybody can use any card, but if you use your own or they use yours, you get stuff. But then the second half of the game was a combat resolution that I hated, so it's like you win some, you lose some. So I would love to see pool building in a strategic game more, and I tried it many times to do something that's not overcomplicated. We'll see. Obviously, these are hard mechanisms to get right. There's a reason there is not hundreds of these games, whereas dice worker placement, I can get out of the bed and design a new game if I really try. It's a much easier mechanism. So we'll see. It's a matter of inspiration.
Yeah, and it's great to see designers push the boundaries as well. And I know I split, I choose is quite common. You hear that a lot. That people saying there needs to be more that of that use in game design as well. But everyone's got a different opinion and what they feel they need to see more of. But I'm sure we could come up with a list where there's too much of a particular type of mechanism that's used in board gaming. So let's move on to question number 6. So we're over at the halfway stage. Yeah, I think you've had a couple of tough ones, David, and compared to our previous guests. So this is quite a nice one. So which board game do you never travel without? So if you're traveling, is there one board game you just can't resist, but you have to take it with you?
Well, lately it has been either Ales and or Terraforming Mars because those are the two games that I can entertain myself with if nobody's around to play games with me. Because with Terraforming Mars, we were working on the new solo mode, the Mars bot, and I didn't really love the old solo mode. It was a bit too simple for me. But now with the new solo mode, I could finally get into. Plus, Ales and I've already talked about. So those two were in my bag a lot. If I go with my partner Norley somewhere, we tend to take Spirit Island because taking a competitive game with her is pointless. I have never beaten her in any game, so it has to be a cooperative game for us to play something together. Other than that, it's usually whichever game I'm working on. So as I said, asking me what games I play is a very loaded question because 8 out of 10 games I play or 9 out of 10 games I play, I do for like around work. So yeah,
It can also be one of those as well. Perhaps I make
no,
that.
sorry, glory to Rome. The answer to this question is glory to Rome. I never traveled without glory to Rome. Sorry,
Ah,
I remembered.
that's a great choice as well. Fantastic board game. So
Yes.
yeah. So let's move on to our next question, David. So we're almost there. So we're on to number 7. What's the most important element when designing a board game? So what's the most important thing that people need to keep in mind when they're designing? So what is it for you when you're designing a board game? That really important part that just glues it all together.
No. Everything that's no. That's no. This is like the classic question of do you design theme or central mechanism first? Everything has to inform everything, and like I design quite heavy games, yet all I've been doing the past year is making games simpler. That because the way you make good heavy games is make them as smart as you can and then make them as simple as you can without losing the smartness. So because if you just care about making them smart, they'll be messy. And I've had games in the past where they were a bit too messy for how smart they were. Nobody said they're not smart, but I lost a chunk of my audience because they could not get into the game because like, oh, this is too much. I don't want to know. So these days I'm not making lighter games than those, but I am making it smoother to get the same heaviness. So the paint job, the to make it smooth, the sanding of the game is what makes the difference between a good and a great game. Making a good game needs a decent, somewhat unique idea with an interesting central choice, needs a setting that has a real world mappable narrative that you can explain with those mechanisms. I hate if a game has a disconnect between what I am doing in the game and what I am doing, what the game tells me I'm doing. Don't give me a resource called resource and don't give me an action where you're loading a ship and this is discarding cards. I don't know. If I'm loading a ship, I want to take my resources and put them on the board called ship. So, or something. So these are these are all the things that get the game to good. Have a good mechanism, integrate it, then of course are there strategies, are there balance, blah blah blah. But those are the craftsman work. Those are the things that we just do repeatedly to make sure that the game is not stupid. But what makes it great is to make it smooth. So this is what I learned over the years. I never struggled making games smart, but it took me years of struggle to get to the point where I can make them smooth. So, and I'm still not finished. I can still make them smoother somehow. So that's the most important part to me now.
It's certainly a good way. You're certainly right, and it's not just one element, is it? There's multiple elements that glue that game together to make it a good, solid game.
The best metaphor for it is the chiseling the statue. It's first, you obviously have to have a good picture in your mind what you want. Then you need to be competent at chiseling with the big one, then the small one. But if when you pull your finger over it, there are sudden sharp bits in the middle, then it doesn't. Then it feels still wrong. Sure, from the distance, people who just walk into the room, look at it once, they'll say it's pretty. But anybody who will come close will see that you've done something wrong. So that's what I'm working on, to make it baby smooth to run along the edge of the statue.
Good metaphor to use, definitely. So let's move on to our next question. We are on to question number 8. So the last 2 questions from the bowl. What's the worst piece of advice you have been given, and why is it that bad?
What?
So has anyone told you something you've taken that advice on that's turned out to be the worst advice you've ever been given? So let's talk about game design. Has anyone told you that definitely do this, and it's turned out to be a really bad idea?
No, because game design is so multifaceted that what's a terrible idea for me is the perfect idea for somebody designing the 20-minute 2-player family games. So it's all about knowing what you're trying to do and who are you trying to do it for and what constitutes good for these people. And I learned it partially by almost succeeding at them on the first try, and then failing a bit, and then succeeding a bit, and then analyzing what was the difference between the failing and the succeeding, and then next time succeeding a bit more, and then the people around me analyzed themselves so they got better, so I could give them more tasks. And it isn't about advice and knowing one thing. It's mostly process. It's mostly being able to reliably make good stuff, and that's the difference of the young one out of coding school writing a cool piece of software, or the engineer who knows how to make a complicated suit that will live through several iterations and tens of thousands of users. Sure, you can be smart doing and I did that for years. That one good idea, let's do it crazy ways, let's see how it works. But if it's not methodical and not repeatable, then no. I singular advice is obviously the common adage of fail often, fail fast, but those are wrong for some people. For me, I definitely do them fast, but instead of failing fast, I tend to jump big fast and then decide whether I jump big enough, which goes against the don't jump big advice. But no, I don't know. I don't like singular advices. Another common question I get on interviews is what's the one advice you would give to a budding game designer today? How to get where you are? And there is no one advice I can get. It's luck, it's tenacity, it's willing to do the same thing over and over and calling your yesterday's work total crap because now you know you can do better. And just as the game gets better with iterations, the designer needs to get better with iterations as well. So one singular advice has made nobody smart.
Yeah, certainly wise words indeed. So we're on to question number, well, we're on to number 9 now, aren't we? So this is going to be our last question out of the pot before we come in with the scenario. So your final question from the pot, David. Who in the board game industry has recently made a positive difference in your life?
Positive difference. I mean, the board game industry is a very friendly place. It's like I'm friends with a zillion designers, publishers, and like almost everybody I have only positive things to say about. So, like standout positive is probably the people I work with day to day because they are the ones that make it possible for me to do this as a living. So it goes out to my bosses at More Than Dice and Mind Clash to keep me afloat. But the other heartwarming story for me is that I did a GameCon campaign last October to celebrate the birth of my son, and I made a promo pack for each of my games, and I set a fairly high and realistic goal for it to make sure that I don't just make a expensive hobby out of it, but it's actually worth doing as a way to raise money for baby stuff and future investments, and it worked. And the people were super enthusiastic, and the people are all came out in spades, and then I get to post updates about cute baby pictures and cat pictures. So that's just feel good.
Certainly great to hear. And yeah, the community in general is positive. There's a lot of fantastic stuff. And it's almost has a family feel to it in some sense as well, and little pockets within the board game community. So there's lots of great stories out there. And we haven't got time to go through all those stories, unfortunately. I'm sure we could do a separate video on that. So we're on to our final question. It's not a question, it is a scenario, which we will pull one from this lot here. Now, I have no idea. I can't even remember what the scenarios are, David, so that doesn't help. So let's just see which one comes out.
Give me your best shot.
So, if you were given the task of rebranding Hasbro for the fashion industry, what would the headline of the press release be?
But
So you've got Hasbro, the redesigning themselves as a fashion guru, a fashion company. What's the headline going to be?
yeah, I don't know anything about the kind of light fluffy family games that Hasbro does, and I don't know anything about the fashion industry. So I'm the wrong person to ask this question. I can't come up with witty fun stuff on the spot. So I don't know how to respond. I'm sorry.
Well, what about on your T-shirt? Maybe that can do.
No, that's just another fun the UK podcast that Nigel and I were guests on last year, and the interviewer had the same sense of humor as Nigel, so they essentially spent the entire hour-long interview making fun of the fact that I like to talk a lot. So in the end, I talked the least just to not make them laugh at me. It was very hilarious. So
I suppose
let me know if you have a T-shirt too.
I think maybe they could come up with some taglines such as "clothing for fun" or something along those lines. I'm sure somebody can come up with far better captions than that.
Sorry, as I said, I'm not a on the spot creative. I'm a tell me the problem, and 5 days from now in the morning shower, I'll come up with a good idea. So.
Well, we'll leave that to a few. So perhaps you at home can come up with some kind of tagline for Hasbro is turning into a fashion guru. So what would you perhaps come up with the taglines? Let us know in the comments down below. So David, that brings us to the end of the show. I'd like to just thank our guest for coming on, and we wish him all the best. future game design. I'm sure you've got many great ideas. Hopefully, it'll come to fruition. And if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel and give that like button a hit. And also, please consider leaving a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts on today's show as well. We hope you enjoyed that. And please do check out the other videos that will be coming out under the Meeple Like show. So that's it for today. My name's Jay Sears, and thank you so much to our guest, David. And until next time, take care.